The appointments are lined up.
You waiting for somebody in there?
Got an appointment.
And it's not about what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
It's not personal. It's strictly business. It's time you and me had a private talk, Winger. Step into my office.
It's Step Into My Office with Michael Lombardi. Mr. Lombardi, we'll see you now.
When you hear that door creak open, that means somebody stepping into the office of our guy, Michael Lombardi. Your first appointment for the day, Michael, head coach of
I didn't even look.
Head coach of the LA Chargers, your favorite guy, Brandon Staley himself, coming off of the 3-point loss to the Green Bay Packers, despite being a 3-point favorite in the game. He was feeling the heat in the post-game press conference when asked about whether or not he'd continue his play calling duties on the defense, said he's got full confidence in their way of playing, full confidence in himself as a play caller. Stop asking the question. What does Brandon Staley need to hear today, or do you think he's just doomed to be fired regardless?
Well, I think what you need to hear, Brendan, is what we all need to hear is the truth, right? And so when you make the claims that your defense isn't the problem, and yet you're 31st or 32nd in passing yards allowed, you're 31st or 32nd in yards per attempt once we recalibrate this week's stats, your inability to get off the field yesterday at 50%, like the job you have as a head coach of an NFL team, a job that's more difficult to achieve than that of a United States senator. There's only 32 of you guys. There's 60-some senators. Is to be realistic and to understand what is the main thing. And great coaches like Sean Payton keep the main thing the main thing. If you think you're playing good defense, then as the great Uncle Junior once said, you're so far out of the race, you actually think you're in the lead. You're not. You're not playing great defense. You don't play great team. You've never played complimentary football since you've been there. You've never played complimentary football. So when you sit up there on the podium and talk about 3 dimensions in complimentary football, that's far into your team. You've never done that. So, I don't know how to help you when you can't help yourself. You're in denial, and you're angry now, and you're feeling the heat. And when you show your emotions at the podium like you did, that tells everybody you're listening to what's being said from people that are outside your building. And you were able to convince the Spanos family after a complete meltdown. By the way, if your defense has played good for 3 years, how did you lose that game to Jacksonville when you had the big lead? I'll wait for your answer on that. There's no need to go further. The reality of it is you're kidding yourself, and there's no help for you if you won't have a dose of reality. You've never been able to run the ball. You've never controlled the pace of the game. You couldn't wait to tell us how good it was to hire Kellen Moore, and yet you have no 2-minute drill that can get the ball. You've lost multiple close games over your career. So let's not get angry at the guy asking the questions. The evidence is there. You've been fortunate enough to get 3 years. Most guys in your position, they don't get 3 years. They got fired after 2, especially when you blow a lead like that. Good luck. Good luck trying to beat Baltimore. Good luck trying to play New England in New England, because even though they're not any good, that'll be a hard game. Good luck playing Denver, who's playing better than you right now, and you got to play them twice.
3 games since that one in the playoffs that they have scored 30 or more points and ended up on the losing end of those games. So to say that your defensive system is working and that you're confident in that system is the delusion is getting to his head a little bit. Now, a loss that was far worse than what we saw from the Chargers yesterday was the Washington Commanders, who were laying more than a touchdown against the beleaguered New York Football Giants and Tommy DeVito. They turned the ball over 6 times, Michael. Ron Rivera is sitting in the office today. Post-game, he called it a low point in his career, acknowledging that the team is close to bottoming out. What is the biggest issue Rivera needs to resolve to try to figure things out here late in the season? Or is he similarly getting cut?
Well, I think, Ron, you've coached 13 years in the National Football League, and you've been to the playoffs 3 times, had winning records 3 times out of those 13 years. You've been to the playoffs 4 times. I think you can't lose games like you did. You got to protect the football, which you haven't been able to do. You got to stop turning the ball over, which you haven't been able to do. And at some point, for somebody who wants to run the ball as much as you do, and as somebody that was demanding to run the ball last year, you've allowed the enemy to just call as many pass plays as he can and stack the play sheet and really not help you win a game. At the end of the day, you don't play complimentary football. When you look back on this year, it's going to be hard. Yeah, you were in a tough spot. New ownership. You're coming in, but you built this team. This is your team. You're the general manager. You're the head coach. Everything goes through you. You got full authority in that building. You have no one to blame but yourself. And yesterday, to me, was the worst loss you could ever have. To a quarterback that really didn't want to make play, couldn't make plays, and you left guys wide open so that he could pretend he was back at Illinois or he could pretend he was back at Syracuse and throw an easy ball. And it's inexcusable. And these are the kind of games, I'm sorry to say, because you are a nice man, that these are the kind of games that get you fired.
Yeah, it's a matter of when, not if. I feel like that Ron Rivera is going to be out the door in this standpoint. And, I mean, the Giants, they have the worst offense in the National Football League. They're a bottom 5 defense, and they turn you over 6 times in a game. Commanders still had a chance to win. Then the pick 6 obviously closes things out. Now, it seems that there is no talking to Frank Reich. We've had him in the office enough, Michael. So we're going to turn the page and have the owner of the Carolina Panthers in there for a talking to with you. What are you telling David Tepper based on this 1-9 season and Frank Reich and this coaching staff that you've had a problem with since the start of the season?
David, you need to hand me your telephone. You need to stop talking to so many people. You know, you got to evaluate the evaluator. Like, you've listened to too many people. And this happens all the time to new owners, is they rely on the league office or they rely on somebody. They rely on a reporter who doesn't know. You know, you're listening that you need to make decisions or you need to find some counsel to where someone could tell you that's probably not a smart decision you're making. You need a consigliere, and you need to find it without somebody having an objective. Your decision to go from Steve Wilks to Frank Reich built on the idea that Frank was going to build your offense when there was no evidence that Frank developed the quarterback in Indianapolis. I mean, you're way too smart to fall for this. Like, how did you get here? And I think the only way you're going to move forward with your next decision is to figure out how you got here. And you, an owner, you can blame anybody for being here, but you know you were involved in every decision. You know you were involved in the process of hiring Frank, and you decided to go in that direction, even though Wilks demonstrated to you that he did a nice job. You didn't like the staff he was going to bring offensively. I get that. Who advised you on what that staff was? I think that's important. Maybe you want to stop listening to them. I think the reality here is you need to figure out how you got here. And then you need to hire somebody who's got a complete command over everything. And let that person run it. And let that person show you what it needs to be an owner. And that means you don't stop having meetings. That don't mean you don't stop asking questions. But you're going to have to figure out how you've messed this thing up, because you've created a huge mess. You've traded assets, and you made your team worse. Michael,
real quickly, would you advise him to cut bait in season or at the end of the year?
I don't know where he's going to go in season. You know, it doesn't really. You're not in a rush to get to find yourself a coach. I don't think you can interview coaches until the second week of the playoffs anyway. So, yeah. I mean, to me, it's all about you better be doing. He's doing his due diligence now. That's the buzz around the league. Is he's looking for another coach, and he's doing his due diligence now. Proven or not, he's not hired a search firm like they do in college, but it's pretty clear that this is a sinking ship there.
We got 90 seconds. Let's try to hit one more. Deion Sanders steps into the office. The Buffs started 3-0, 1-7 since, including a bad blowout loss to Washington State, who has struggled mightily on Friday. Deion told reporters after the loss it's the toughest stretch probably of his life. How can he recapture that early season momentum for the program?
Well, I think what you have to figure out is why you lost, right? And you're not good in the offensive or defensive lines. You can't stop anybody on defense. And until you get good on defense, it doesn't matter how many yards you throw for. You never get control of the game. You haven't had control of any game because you can't stop anybody. And I think the recruiting, for all the things that you've done great at Colorado, you're going to have to get into the trenches, and you're going to have to fix both offensive and defensive line. Look, the formula for winning in pro or college doesn't matter. You got to be good up front, and you're not. And so you're going to have to get that better quickly. And you got to stop saying this is hard for you, because rebuilding a program is really hard. You know, you're not in the pro football. It's hard to rebuild programs. And you took over one that was really bad shape. Now you're going to lose some of your coaches because they're going to leave, because it's not been a very good situation. You're going to lose some of your assistant coaches, and you got to make sure you do the right thing and hire the right people and let them do their job.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.